Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Hui Yuhao was in a state of deep thought. He searched his memory. This phenomenon seemed similar to something he had seen before. However, as he was inside the human-shaped soul tool, his friends could not see what he was up to. Everyone else was tense, and no one had the time to look at him. The attractive energy appeared to be getting stronger. However, it was not destructive. The protective soul barrier Elder Xian had unleashed separated them from the outside world. Everyone released their martial souls in preparation. To them, the situation was too odd. Even Elder Xian, someone with the cultivation of an ultimate Doluo, could not resist it head-on. What terrifying power! While an ultimate Doluo was not strong enough to move mountains or drain oceans, it would not be difficult for him to wreck an entire city. And yet, he could not resist this shapeless gold and silver energy. Everyone, make your preparations. Elder Xian shouted. His body shook, and his 9 soul rings shone brightly. His body started to expand, and he turned into a godly Daotai bull, sweeping everyone onto his back. The light he unleashed became brighter, and they were now being moved at a much slower speed. While they were still moving, it was no longer as quickly as before. They continued to fly through the air, pulled by the attractive power. As they could not sense their surroundings, and their sight was blocked by the fog, everyone felt as if they were in the clouds. After 15 minutes, the scene before them began to clear up. They had emerged from the thick fog. This is... Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked in disbelief. The scene before them was that shocking. None of them could have imagined it. While they were in the thick fog, they all sensed danger around them. However, at this moment, they were shocked by the majestic water before them. All of their negative emotions from before were gone. Before them was a wide lake. It was surrounded by mountains, and the water of the lake was so clear that one could see its bottom. Strangely, the water was gold and silver. At the center of the lake was a round patch of gold. The intense golden light spread outward from the patch, as if it were a reflection of the sun. They could see a moon encircling it, sun and moon connected to one another. The moon gave off a silver light. The vast lake was completely dominated by these two colors of gold and silver. The two-colored light spread outward non-stop. It crept across the mountain and spread far into the distance. How beautiful, how stunning. Everyone looked dazedly at the scene before them, rather disbelieving. However, it was real. Furthermore, under the pull of the gold and silver light, they gradually approached the center of the lake. I know. Hui Yuhao shouted. When he saw the shocking scene before his eyes, all the dots in his brain connected. He finally thought of where he had heard about this curious scene. He said urgently, almost shouting, later, no matter what we encounter, if a voice asks you questions, you must reply truthfully. If you lie, you'll be in mortal danger. Remember to speak the truth, especially when it comes to relationships. You must not lie. Right when he finished, they were already in the center of the lake, above the golden sun and the silver moon. The golden sun and silver moon in the lake became extremely radiant. The radiant gold light and the bright silver light started to rise and engulf all of them, including Elder Xian, who was still in his godly Daotai bull form. This power was extremely unique. It appeared about them effortlessly. They could feel it, but they realized that they were unable to control it. Elder Xian's martial soul true body was forced back into his original shape by the two-colored light, before they were all completely covered by it. When they could see other again, they were shocked to discover that they were all placed inside separate gold and silver bubbles, floating in mid-air. Everyone was split apart, and no two people were together. Many of them were terrified. All they could remember were Hui Yuhao's words. When Hui Yuhao said that, he had used his spiritual power. His words were imprinted in all of their minds. Before they could make any more observations, the gold and silver bubbles started to descend into the sun and moon in the center of the lake. Wang Donga looked at Hui Yuhao, and he looked back at her. He nodded at her vigorously and gestured toward her. His meaning was clear. Don't worry about me, do as I said. Wang Donga nodded to show that she understood. Had it been an ordinary person, they may already have collapsed when faced with such a change. However, the students of Shrek Academy were the top of their generation. In comparison, they were taking it all rather well. While they were shocked, surprised and a bit terrified, they all seemed relatively stable. There were loud plops as the gold and silver light that surrounded them dropped them into the lake. In the poison chapter, it stated that the Icefire Yin-Yang well was one of the 3 great blessed lands. It contained the power of ultimate ice and ultimate fire, and was extremely dangerous. However, it contained countless natural treasures as well. Any plant that grew there would grow 10 times faster. Those who could enter it would benefit immensely. When Hui Yuhao actually entered it, he was shocked by the many divine herbs and plants. Then, he was able to retrieve the yearning heartbroken grass to save Wang Donga. However, he was also severely injured by the blazing sun spring and the extreme chill ice spring, and barely made it back alive. According to Tang San's records, the 3 great blessed lands were both dangerous and filled with treasures. He had to surmount countless dangers before he could enter the Icefire Yin-Yang well. If not for his abilities, which were barely enough, there was no way he could have entered. The place before him was another of the 3 great blessed lands. It was ranked above the Icefire Yin-Yang well, and it was the top blessed land among the 3. This place was known as the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. In the poison chapter, no one knew if the 3 great blessed lands were real or not. Tang San had only seen the Icefire Yin-Yang well. No one was sure if the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley actually existed. The Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley was the first among the 3 great blessed lands not because of its riches, but because of its danger. Furthermore, no one knew what kind of danger existed here. To benefit from it was exceedingly difficult. Legend had it that in the god realm, after the goddess of love was betrayed by her love, her grief made her insane, and she descended into the mortal world. Heaven and earth were inverted, and the sun and moon became a lake. As the goddess of love was betrayed by her lover, she hated all those who betrayed their lovers. Hence, when these kinds of people entered the sun-moon lake of the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley, it would enrage her, and she would seek to exterminate them. Only those who were true to their lovers could leave this place alive and reap its rewards. All liars would be severely punished. Hui Yuhao did not remember all this, because the poison chapter was extremely vague in its description. The most important line from it was, "The sun and moon form its lake, the earth shall ask about your love." Those who are true may take the risk, but those who show true love are invincible here. With such a blurry description, Hui Yuhao would not have been able to remember the short line from the poison chapter, had he not seen the golden sun and silver moon. Even Tang San doubted the existence of the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. Hence, he only left one tip. Speak the truth, and be true to your love. Only then could one survive. Other than that, there was no other information about it. Hence, while Hui Yuhao knew a bit more than the rest, this was the full extent of his knowledge. All 13 spots on the round platform were rapidly occupied. In addition to him, Wang Donga, Wang Chua, Bei Bei, He Kai Tu, Xiao Xiao, Jiang Nan Nan, Xu Sansha, Zhong Lishuan, Ning Qian, Wu Feng, Dai Huobin, and Zhu Lu were there. They each stood in a gold and silver gas bubble. Hui Yuhao tried to shout, but he realized that his voice could not be heard by the others. The others observed their surroundings carefully. From the shape of their mouths, some appeared to be shouting. However, this place was eerily silent. Calm, I must keep calm. This was ultimately the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. Hui Yuhao made his decision. He opened his human-shaped soul tool and revealed himself. This was so that the others could see his expression. Wang Donga looked at him straight away. Hui Yuhao quickly raised his hands and waved at her. Wang Donga waved back at him, telling him that she could see him. After much thought, Hui Yuhao started to gesture with his hands. Due to what he had shouted out earlier, his hand gestures caught everyone's attention. His gestures were simple. He told them to do as he instructed. At this moment, the golden round platform started to emit fog. Suddenly, a thin sliver of golden light shot out from the center of the round platform. It quickly made one round around the platform. The back of the golden sliver spun around and pointed at the 13 round platforms. The heavens and the earth will query you about your love, a heartfelt adventure. Begin, a voice said calmly. No one could tell if it was a man or a woman as it rang out in the ears of all 13 of them. They all quieted down because, to their surprise, they realized that all they could see now was gold and silver light. The sliver of light, at the center of the round platform, started to spin rapidly. It passed by all of their bubbles, lighting them up in succession. After it passed, their bubbles returned to their normal state. Suddenly, the golden sliver stopped. It pointed to a smaller, round platform. The person on this platform was Wu Feng. Wu Feng was chosen by the golden light. She was a little shocked, because the bubble she was in started to light up. She was a proud individual, however, and she showed no sign of fear. She appeared to be shouting something. The bubble around her disappeared. A column of golden light started to rise from underneath her feet, and soon, it enveloped her whole body. Inside the golden light, her body slowly started to rise. When she was a meter above the ground, it stopped. Wu Feng felt the changes with a little shock. She discovered that while there was nothing wrong with her, she could not move anymore. At this moment, the emotionless voice rang out once more. This time, only she could hear it. Do you have a lover? Wu Feng's heart shook, but she did not open her mouth. In her mind, all she could think of was Hu Yuhao's instructions. Do you have a lover? If you don't reply after the third time, you'll be punished with death. Yes, I do, said Wu Feng loudly as she grit her teeth. While the others were paying attention to her, they all appeared slightly confused. She could see that she was the only one who could hear this voice. Who is your lover? The voice asked calmly. Ning Tian, replied Wu Feng without any hesitation. That's her, right? The golden light underneath her lit up and landed on Ning Tian. Instantly, the bubble around Ning Tian opened, and she too started to float in midair. Ning Tian! Wu Feng cried out. However, the bubble around her started to rise, blocking out her voice. However, her bubble was now transparent. Unlike the rest of them, she could still see Ning Tian. Do you have a lover? The voice asked Ning Tian. Ning Tian frowned and looked at Wu Feng, who appeared to be shouting, shook her head, and said, No, I don't. She said you're her lover, right? The voice asked once more. Ning Tian was shocked, and then she replied, I know she likes me. However, we're both girls. I can't accept homosexual love. Hence, I only treat her as a good friend. If you don't love her, she'll die. Will you choose to love her? The voice quickly asked. Ning Tian paused. This question was difficult to answer. Pa! A golden light came from nowhere and hit Wu Feng fiercely. Instantly, the clothes around her waist were torn open, and a bloody wound could be seen. Her soul power was completely sealed, so she couldn't release her martial soul. Wu Feng could not help but cry out in pain. For the insult, you're punished with one stroke of the whip. If you do that again, you'll die. Yes, I'm upset. Does that make you happy? Tears dripped from Wu Feng's face. She had always liked Ning Tian, but she knew that Ning Tian could not accept such an unconventional love. If not, she would not have shown her love for Hu Yuhao at the Sea God's Lake. She said that she's willing to die for you. Now, I have two options for you. You can try and get her to die for you, or you can die. If she's willing, you'll live. If you're willing to die, then she'll live. Between the two of you, only one of you will live. The calm voice suddenly turned cold, and brimmed with a strong killing intent. It was enough to make Wu Feng shiver. However, she made her decision almost instantly. Without hesitation, she said, All right, I'll die. Let her live. Let her leave this place and live out her life. Kill me. When she said that, Wu Feng looked deeply at Ning Tian. Tears flowed from her face, but her determination never wavered. The golden light flashed. A golden blade appeared silently in front of Wu Feng. At the same time, she found that could move her hands once more. Kill yourself, the calm voice said as if it was nothing. Wu Feng inhaled and cried out, Let Ning Tian go. As she spoke, she grabbed the sharp blade in front of her and pierced her chest with it. However, at that very moment, time seemed to stop. Wu Feng was frozen, though the tip of the knife was already at her chest. It looked as if it would penetrate her chest at any moment. The bubble around Ning Tian burst open, and the calm voice said, To let you live, she's willing to sacrifice her own life. If I hadn't stopped her, she would have already died for you. You just said that you're willing to die for her. If you want, you can die and she'll live. This is your last chance. As she said that, the same golden blade appeared in front of Ning Tian. Its sharp blade gleamed coldly. Life and death, this was the hardest question of all for humans. Ning Tian grabbed the knife and looked at Wu Feng, who was suspended in midair with tears running down her face. Her blade was almost at her breast. She couldn't help but take a deep breath as tears trickled down her own face. Ah Feng, I know you like me, but we're of the same sex. I've told you many times, but you just won't listen. For me, you're willing to offer your own valuable life. I owe you this. Here, maybe only one of us can live. Go and live your life. If we meet again in our next lives, I hope to be a guy. Then, I'll marry you for sure. As she said that, Ning Qian closed her eyes, lifted the golden knife and slashed at her throat. 2 golden rays of light lit up together. Ning Qian suddenly felt a weight disappearing from her hand. On the other side, Wu Feng could move once more. However, the knives in their hands had disappeared. 2 different voices sounded next to their ears. Their frames were enveloped by the bubbles once more. Over on Wu Feng's side, the voice said, "Love is blind and may go against human nature, making it impossible. However, true love is willing to sacrifice everything. This kind of love is pitiable. You pass the first round, sincerity." Over at Ning Tian's side, the voice said, "Love is not blind. For friendship, you're willing to sacrifice everything you have. This comes from the depths of your heart. You pass the first round, sincerity." Ning Tian and Wu Feng looked at each other, separated by their bubbles. Both of them felt slightly disoriented. In their hearts, they felt a strange sensation, as if they had understood something. This place did not appear as frightening as they had thought. There were now an additional pair of gold and silver rings over their bubbles. The gold and silver light screen rose once more, blocking their view. The sliver of golden light started to spin rapidly once again. When the shining golden light from the central round platform stopped this time, it stopped on Bei Bei's platform. The bubble opened, and Bei Bei was suspended in mid-air. The calm voice asked him, "Do you have a lover?" Bei Bei could sense that there was a light flashing outside, but he did not know what had happened. However, he trusted Hu Yuhao completely. Coupled with his own intellect, he calmed down quickly. "Yes, I do," he replied calmly. "Who is she?" "Tang Ya," Bei Bei replied without hesitation. "She's not here, right?" "Correct," Bei Bei replied quickly. The calm voice paused momentarily, then asked, "What is the one thing you want to do the most for your lover?" Bei Bei replied, "I want to help her return to normal, so she can be by my side once more." The calm voice asked, "When she's by your side again, do you think she'll be happy?" Bei Bei answered, "I'll do everything I can to make her happy." The calm voice said, "Your words mean nothing. If you could exchange a body part of yours to make her normal again, would you do it?" "Of course," Bei Bei replied firmly. A sharp golden knife appeared before him, and the calm voice said, "Then castrate yourself." Bei Bei paused. He had not expected that this unknown voice would make him do such a thing. "Are you sure she'll recover?" Bei Bei could not help but ask. "Do you have a choice?" the calm voice replied, as an image appeared in front of Bei Bei. It was a face he was extremely familiar with. Tang Ya sat quietly on a bed. She stared blankly out a window, and her face was extremely pale. Dark blue patterns of light occasionally glimmered on her face. "You just said that you would be willing to sacrifice a body part for her. Do you regret it now?" "You can regret your choice. You can choose not to cut it off," the voice said calmly. Bei Bei's body was shaking. However, he slowly raised his hand and touched the blade. "I'm willing to castrate myself for her, but I have one request," he said as he gripped the blade of the knife tightly. "Speak. If you can really cure her from afar, then try your best to erase all her memories. Make her forget me, make her forget everything about me, all right?" "I can consider that," the voice said plainly. "Thank you," Bei Bei replied. His eyes turned red, as he stared intently at Tang Ya in the image. Suddenly, he shouted, "Xiao Ya, I love you." A golden light glinted, as he brought the sharp blade down. Pu. An intense, shot pain through him. Bei Bei felt everything turn white. "You're willing to sacrifice for love, and you don't want your lover to feel upset. You pass the first round, sincerity." The light screen rose, and Bei Bei stared dazedly, as he watched the silver gold light screen blocking his vision once more. He was back in his bubble. He could not help but shout, "I've already cut it off, Kyo Xiao Ya." There was no reply. Furthermore, Bei Bei felt that something was amiss. He lowered his head and felt the pain coming from his leg. There was no sharp knife there. The hand which had gripped the sharp knife had only struck his leg. No wonder he only felt pain. The golden light started to spin once more. Bei Bei felt as if all his energy had been sucked out of him. He sat down on the floor as cold sweat trickled down his body. "For guys, there was a certain body part that was more important than their lives. He was willing to sacrifice it for Xiaoya, but it would be best for him not to do it. When she looked at the changes that were taking place around her, Zhong Lishuan was even calmer than Bei Bei. She had been trying to unleash her martial soul. While she was not successful, she did not slack in her efforts to do so. How could she be the strongest in the inner courtyard without a strong will? While Elder Mu did allow her to enter the Sea God's pavilion before he died as a form of compensation, it was also in part due to her powers. "Do you have a lover?" the calm voice spoke up once more, causing her to perk up. "No," she replied without hesitation. "Have you loved someone before?" the calm voice asked once again. "Yes," Zhong Lishuan replied. She remembered Hu Yuhao's words very clearly. "Who is he?" Zhong Lishuan took in a deep breath, then said, "Bei Bei." She did not know that at this time, while Bei Bei's bubble blocked his gaze, he could hear everything Zhong Lishuan said. Just as he recovered from the previous questioning, he heard Zhong Lishuan's voice. This made him almost jump up from the ground. "Has he ever loved you?" the calm voice asked Zhong Lishuan. No, Zhong Lishuan knew the answer to this question very well. "How did you fall for him?" the calm voice asked quietly. Zhong Lishuan paused, and she blushed slightly. However, a look of pain crossed her eyes. "How did you fall for him? If you don't reply after the third time, you'll be punished with death." A bitter smile crept onto Zhong Lishuan's face. This question opened the deepest wound in her heart. "When I came to Shrek Academy, he was still young. At that time, Elder Mu made me swear to become his wife. I had to take care of him, love him, and be his wife in an arranged marriage. Elder Mu saved my life. At that time, I had nowhere to call home, so I agreed. Elder Mu treated me well and trained me wholeheartedly. Soon, I became the most powerful soul master of my generation. He made no other requests of me, but I remembered my duty in my heart. I was Bei Bei's fiancée, his wife in an arranged marriage. I watched him grow up day by day. At the start, I tried to play the role as best as I could. I accompanied him every day, protected him, and tried to fulfill all his wishes. This was because I had already made mental preparations to marry him when he grew up and become his wife. Since then, in my heart, he was already my little husband. However, he never treated me that way in return. All that time, he only treated me as his sister. He always called me sister. At that time, we were still young, so I did not give it much thought. As Bei Bei grew older, his body started to mature. He finally surpassed me in height. At that time, I finally realized that my future fiancé had become a man. He was very handsome, the corner of his mouth beamed like the sun, and he smiled in a devilishly handsome way. Everything he did attracted me. I felt that the promise I made was not a task anymore. Something stirred in my heart. Perhaps she had kept these words inside her for way too long, but in this mysterious unknown world where even Elder Xian could not resist, Zhong Lishuan started to speak freely. She bared her soul, and at that moment, a slight smile crept across her face as she indulged in her memories. Bei Bei heard everything from his bubble. He experienced everything that Zhong Lishuan said. He felt that he had returned to that time of his life. A beautiful elder sister who was always next to him. An elder sister who would protect him and satisfy his requests. When he was young, he was so in love, so dependent on her. Then, he turned 12 years old and finally entered the academy to study. At that time, I was a disciple of the inner courtyard. As my cultivation became more intense, coupled with my split from the outer courtyard, we had no choice but to separate. At that time, I thought, I must continue to cultivate and become stronger so that I can better protect him in the future and guard him as he grows up. However, I never expected that when he appeared before me again, he was next to a little girl, a beautiful girl around his age. She was extremely pretty, and he treated her very well. I could tell that he looked at her differently from how he looked at me. At that time, I realized suddenly that I'd lost my fiancé. I went to find Elder Mu to report this to him and seek his counsel. He thought for a long while, and then told me that his decision back then had been too selfish. He should not have let me make that promise. After all, I was much older than Bei Bei. Even though soul masters don't age normally, there was still a generational gap between him and me. Elder Mu said that from that moment, I had regained my freedom. After all, Bei Bei did not know about this, and I could choose my future from that moment onward. When I left Elder Mu's room, I felt as if I had lost my soul. 10 years of care and 10 years of commitment. In the end, it was not a promise that I had to keep. However, I realized that this young, always smiling boy was already imprinted in my mind. I tried to forget him as quickly as I could. I tried quite intensely. Every day, I trained as hard as I could. I hoped to numb myself with my cultivation. However, after I ended my closed-door cultivation, I met him by fate once more. At that time, I realized that there was no way I could forget him. I actually fell for a guy who was almost 10 years younger than me. I found Elder Mu and I told him that regardless of what decision he and Bebe came to, I would fulfill my promise. I would become his fiancé, and I wouldn't betray my vows. When I said these words, I was extremely resolute. However, only I knew that I wasn't bound by this decade-old promise. Instead, I was bound by the emotions in my heart that had grown over the past 10 years. In 10 years, I watched as a boy became a man. In my heart, there was no other man but him. Zhong Lishuan choked on her words. She finally released all the emotions she had been suppressing in her heart. In all these years, whenever she saw Bei and Tang Yue together, her heart would ache. What pained her even more was Tang Yue's disappearance. Since then, Bei had changed. However, it was only because she knew him so well that she felt so strongly. Zhong Lishuan had never fought for his heart. After all, she was older than Bei by almost 10 years, and Tang Yue and Bei were closer in age. How would she stand a chance? Hence, Zhong Lishuan chose to keep quiet. She watched him quietly. At the start, she was unwilling to give up her love just like that. However, over time, she quietly gave up. Sometimes, she would reveal a bit of her emotions to Bei. However, she had never really asked him for anything. Instead, she kept these emotions to herself deep in her heart. Her promise was like an island of refuge for her. She was exceptional, and had attracted countless men in Shrek Academy. However, she rejected all of them for this one true love. As Bei listened to Zhong Lishuan's words, his heart ached with a great agony. In his mind, he started to recall everything he had done with Zhong Lishuan when they were young. Sister Lishuan, can I eat the fruits on that tree? Pick one for me. Okay. Sister Lishuan, you're so beautiful. Marry me when I grow up, okay? Okay. Sister Lishuan, I'm tired. I'll carry you. Sister Lishuan, I'm hungry. I'll cook something for you. Sister Lishuan. Tears streamed down Bei's face. At this moment, he finally realized how much Zhong Lishuan had sacrificed for their relationship. Through all these years, she had concealed her truest emotions in the depths of her heart. No wonder he had felt himself growing distant from Sister Lishuan after he met Tang Yue. Sister Lishuan, how can I face you? At this moment, Bei heard the terrifying voice. Since you love him so much, and he doesn't love you, are you still willing to sacrifice yourself for him? The calm voice asked once more. Its tone was cold. Zhong Lishuan fell silent for a while. She raised her hands to wipe away her tears, then said with determination, I am. Are you willing to die for him? I said that I'm willing, Zhong Lishuan said calmly and emotionlessly. At this moment, Bei, who heard this voice too, felt as if someone had slammed a sledgehammer into his chest. His face turned pale, and his body trembled. He sat straight down on the floor, and his lips quivered, but he said nothing. You're a dumb girl. But your emotions are true, and your love is selfless. You pass the sincerity round. Your selfless sacrifice shall be rewarded. You are hereby exempted from the second round, said the calm voice with a bit more emotions. Zhong Lishuan was stunned. Then, she watched as the light screen rose in front of her once more. However, how could she remain calm? The golden light flashed once more, and circled them again. The warm gold light shone everywhere. It appeared that in the depths of the lake of the yin-yang love-querying valley, the iciness and hate were warmed by the many forms of selfless love it had encountered. The golden light now circled for a longer period of time. When it stopped once more, it stopped at Dai Huabin. He floated up, and a clear golden light flashed. Dai Huabin became visibly tense. Like everyone else selected by the golden light, he knew nothing about what had just happened. However, as one of the top soul masters of the younger generation, he was no fool. While he hated Hui Yuhao, he recognized his abilities. When Hui Yuhao had shouted those words just then, he heard all of them. No one would ignore life-saving advice because of hate. Do you have a lover? The calm voice asked. Yes, I do. Dai Huabin replied without hesitation. At the same time, Hui Yuhao's words rang out repeatedly in his head. Speak the truth always, no matter what you're asked. Who is your lover? Zhu, Dai Huabin replied. However, he did not know that the moment he said that, Zhu could already hear his voice. Is she the one you love the most? Dai Huabin paused for a moment. He hesitated. Is she the one you love the most? If you don't reply after the third time, you'll be punished with death, the calm voice said coldly. No, Dai Huabin said. When he said that, his voice was rigid. When Zhu, who was sealed in her own golden light, heard his response, her entire body stiffened. An incredulous look crossed her face, and her tiny frame trembled. She wanted to struggle, to fight, but here, even Elder Xian was helpless. How could she escape? Then who do you love? The calm voice asked. Dai Huabin looked prepared as he said solemnly, Wang Chua. At that moment, Wang Chua could hear him too. Since you already have a lover, how can you love someone else? How can you face her? The voice was merciless. Dai Huabin's eyes turned dark, and he said, It's true, I can't face her, but I do love her. However, in my heart, I think I love Wang Chua more. The calm voice asked, I'll give you a choice. Between the two of them, you can choose one to die for. If you do that, she'll live. Who do you choose? This question impacted Dai Huabin greatly. His entire body turned stiff. In his head, the same question replayed itself over and over again. He had never given it much thought, but he had also never expected to face such a problem today. At this moment, his brain ran wild. This time, the voice did not prompt him. It wanted him to think this through. After a long while, Dai Huabin finally said with difficulty, I know. If I had to choose one person to die for, I'd choose Zhu. Eh? The calm voice was calm. Zhu. You don't love her, though. Dai Huabin replied, Yes, but she's the one who loves me the most in this world. She's always by my side, and she sacrifices herself for me in many ways. I can't face her, because I am attracted to some other woman. However, I'm clear that Wang Chua doesn't love me, and there's no possibility of anything happening with her. All I can do is love her quietly. However, if I were to choose someone to become my wife, I'd choose Zhu. At the same time, I'll use my life to protect her. If I die and she lives, I won't have any regrets. The calm voice appeared lost as it said, Your thinking is weird, and your view on love is hard to understand, but your heart is true. You pass the first round, sincerity. When Dai Huabin landed back on the ground, his face had a terrible expression. He had been asked the most painful question of his life, and experienced intense emotional turmoil. The golden light flashed once more, and landed on Zhu. When it dissipated, Zhu's small frame started to rise. At this moment, her face was streaked with tears. When she heard that Dai Huabin did not love her the most, her heart was filled with despair. The entire world had turned grey. However, when she heard that Dai Huabin was willing to die for her after he said all those things, her emotions became exceedingly complicated. However, she was not in despair anymore. At the very least, the man she loved still liked her. Do you have a lover? The calm voice asked. I do, Zhu replied, choking on her words. At that moment, Dai Huabin, who was still in emotional agony, heard her voice. His entire body trembled, and he realized that she had heard everything. It was likely that Wang Chua had heard him too. An indescribable feeling rose in his heart, like he had lost his soul. His entire body went limp. If not for the mysterious power supporting him, he would have already collapsed to the ground. Who is he? Dai Huabin, replied Zhu, gritting her teeth. Then, you heard everything he just said. What are your thoughts? The calm voice seemed to ask the questions that would cause the most pain. He's a piece of shit. Zhu cried out. Afterward, she began bawling. Do you still love him? The calm voice continued its questioning. Dai Huabin opened his eyes and perked his ears up to listen. He was suddenly scared of the answer he would get. However, he could not help but listen. Yes, Zhu did not hesitate. Even though she was bawling her eyes out, she answered the question without a moment's hesitation. He doesn't love you, and you called him a piece of shit. So why do you still love him? The calm voice had no intention of sparing her. Part 1 end here.